Welcome to the Age of Steam Roundhouse Museum. I'm Taylor Lill. I work as the Education and Public Programming Coordinator here, and this is my friend Felix. How are you today, Felix? I'm doing okay. Today we're filming a series of brief discussions on Roundhouse Museum exhibits, and today we want to discuss how a steam locomotive works, how it uses its steam. So we'll do a brief discussion on number 13 here. 13 worked for years in West Virginia. It's marked for Buffalo Creek and Gully. It hauled coal in the mountains of West Virginia for years. We'll come alongside the locomotive. All engines require fuel. In this case, we have coal. This is a lump of anthracite coal. Many of our engines would use bituminous coal, but this is a lump of anthracite we use because it's much more firm. You can pass it around without getting black greasy dust on your hands. So you pass around that to groups. So they also require water. They require air. And so these are all things we like to say that living things need as well. We all need food or fuel, water, and air to survive, and even shelter as we look around this beautiful roundhouse and the architecture that we have here. Looking at number 13, you can see that she has a tender, which would be its reservoir for fuel, in this case coal, as I mentioned, as well as water. There's the cab where the engineer and the fireman would ride. And the engineer, or the fireman rather, would be in charge of shoveling that fuel from the tender into the firebox. And that's this portion of the locomotive. And you could imagine that it's called the firebox because that's where the fire is. So it would burn a very hot fire and create all kinds of heat, and that heat would be transferred through the firebox, through what's called the crown sheet, into this cylindrical portion of the locomotive here, which is the boiler. And so in that cylindrical portion, there are many, many smaller tubes that run through. So there's the boiler, there's water, and then there are tubes that are dry that run through the length of the boiler. And so that when we create the heat in this part of the firebox here, that releases hot gases and hot air to run through the tubes in the boiler, which heats the water that surrounds the tubes, which produces steam. Begins to boil and produces steam. And so that hot steam rises to the top point. The hottest steam rises to the top point, and it is collected in the steam dome, where the engineer can, using his or her throttle in the cab, can direct how much steam is being pumped into these cylinders, the cylinders containing pistons. And so when that steam is released, it begins to drive the piston, which drives the rods and makes the wheels run and drives the entire locomotive and the entire train as you have a train of cargo behind it. And so that's number 13. We have a brief science experiment to show you how a steam locomotive works. Let me put on my trusty safety glasses here before we head over here. Boiling. As you can see, steam is a powerful force. It can power some of our simplest experiments to demonstrate the basics of how the force works. Or it can even propel some of the largest pieces of equipment that humans have thought of. Thank you for joining us on this installment of The Age of Steam.